A very pleasant good afternoon and welcome one and all to the rush this afternoon. It is Tuesday, the 6th of April 2021. And I want to say thank you very much to those persons joining us internationally, in the region, and right here in Guyana. My name is Randolph Critchlow, and I want to say good afternoon to everyone joining the live. It's this very cold afternoon. It's a bit rainy here in Georgetown. But of course, as usual, let us start by asking you where you're joining us from this afternoon. Shout out in the comments. Let us know where you're joining us from, which part of the world you're locked in from this afternoon for the afternoon rush. The rush. Rush Hour is here, and we are going to be rushing through a number of topics. We're unpacking a number of topics this afternoon as we take a look at what has happened in and around Guyana over the long Easter weekend. We hope that you enjoyed that Easter weekend, and we're going to be bringing you the credible and valid information here this afternoon. All right, Elaine Mann from Trinidad. Welcome to all of you joined us from all over the world. All right, Barbados in the house, USA, Maryland, Essequibo, Mocha, Arcadia. Thank you very much for joining us. Welcome to the afternoon rush. Everyone joining us from Linden also. We're seeing here, we following your comments on the live. We just like to welcome all of you. Again, hit us up in the comments. Let us know where you're joining us from. Canada in the house. IFLAT in the house. West Coast, Demerara, Brooklyn in the house. Thank you very much for those persons who are joining the rush this afternoon. Are you ready for the rush on this Tuesday, the 6th of April 2021? We have lots of topics to cover, but as usual, we give everybody a chance to get in on the live, share the live stream, let your friends and the family know that we are live on the APNU AFC's main channel. We're also live on a number of other MPs' page. If you're joining us from any of those pages, we want to say thank you very much. Any of the other group pages that you're joining us from, thank you very much for tuning in. St. Lucia in the house, GT of course in the house, following us from West Demerara. Good afternoon to all of you joining us from Chicago. Thank you very much for tuning in this afternoon to the afternoon rush with yours truly, Randolph Critchlow. Covent Garden, thank you very much for tuning in. Good afternoon. Those persons joining from Barbados also. Again, from Berbice, New Amsterdam, Mr. Evans, Sean Evans there joining us. Sinclair from Canada, thank you very much for tuning in. This is a period where we share the live stream. Let everyone get on board the afternoon rush. Let your friends and family know that we are live. Share. So we get, as my colleague Sher Duncan usually says, we get to that magic number before we start the ball rolling here on the rush. Remember, we're also live on YouTube if you prefer looking at it from that platform. South Carolina in the house, Barbados, Oxford, Florida, our friends in Berbice, North Carolina, Haslington. Somebody's reminding us in the comment that it's petition time tomorrow. Of course, we're keeping our eyes there on the elections petition. Yes, we are going to be keeping our eyes on that. Brooklyn, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Share the live stream. Until we hit that magic number, we want to say thank you all for your continued commitment to the APNU AFC information page, and all the other pages that you follow us on. We know we're also on YouTube, Instagram. You can catch us there. Right, East Bank, Demerara in the house. The UAE joining us from very far. United Arab Emirates in the house, watching from London. Thank you very much. We are about ready to get on with the rush, the afternoon rush here, as we break down a lot of what would have happened over the last few days. We had a very long holiday weekend. We saw a number of things playing out in our country as the Guyana Defense Force has joined the effort to curb the spread of COVID-19 We saw a number of persons being detained from a night, whether it be nightclubs or party spots. We saw them being detained, and we see people making light of it and making joke of it about persons who were all scooped up in that the GDF slash COVID-19 collection bus that's been collecting people around the town, around the country, fighting, helping to fight the indiscipline, so to speak, by so many persons who are not adhering to the COVID-19 regulations or the COVID-19 curfew put in place, so the persons may be home at a particular time. So we saw that quite eventful. There are videos circulating, of course. I'm sure that if you're tuned to social media, that you saw those videos circulating of persons jumping out of the bus, the behavior in the bus. It is really, really sad to see some that we have to get to this place. We have to get to a place where we have to arrest you. We have to detain you so that we can, instill the fact in your head that you need to protect yourself. You need to do the things you need to do to protect yourself from COVID-19 and adhere to the regulations. Folks, I start on this note because, it is quite sad that we see the numbers keep going up. We don't start here. We see the numbers keep going up, and this is about 21 hours ago, right? At the end of today, we'll have some more updated numbers and we'll post on the page. But we saw that the COVID-19 taking the 247th right. We want to get into number topics, folks, and I'm just reading some comments. We're going to get into some topics. But we saw this. But before we get to that number, that bad number, I always remind you of an even worse number. 400 days and since the March 2nd regional and general elections. 400 days, folks. It has been 247 days since this fraudulent administration was installed on August the 2nd, 2020. And we don't need to rehash. It will take us a very long time to rehash all of the ills that this administration has brought on this country in the 247 days. In the 247 days since they would have taken up office, right? So we continue to watch all of what they've been doing. 247 days now since they were installed in government, and we we don't need to rehash all of what they would have done. Folks, we're still looking out, we're still watching. We heard that it has been said in some circles that the second round of COVID-19, not vaccines, but disbursement, cash grants are being distributed. It is believed that those persons with their pink slips will be getting their disbursement on this round. And let us keep our fingers crossed, because I have been one of the most vocal in terms of calling the government out on this farce that is the COVID-19 cash grant distribution and how they've handled it poorly. If it is that this second round is about to begin and people are going to get what belongs to them, a little help, a little pickings to take them through this tough period, the little $25,000, let us get on with that. Let us get on with ensuring those persons who are given pink slips, all manner of questions were asked of, let them get the little ravelins, as we say in local parlance. Come on. And I'm hoping that those things that were being said in some circles are true. That this second round will target those persons who were given those pink slips. We are hopeful that that is the case. But as we talk about COVID-19, let me bring back that particular stat there, folks. 247 persons. This is quite alarming. And we have to approach this COVID 19 with some level of seriousness. We have not been doing that. We have not been doing that. And this is an appeal to Guyanese people. We saw the videos of people partying. We saw the videos of people not adhering to the regulations and the guidelines. We saw it, folks. And we want people to understand that they are responsible for their own safety. The army shouldn't have to, the joint service shouldn't have to come and pick you up, throw you in a bus for you to adhere to a simple regulation so that you don't die. It is quite sad that this is the situation that we're facing in this country. And as we speak, folks, we're picking up on news that Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Mr. Keith Rowley, will have tested positive for COVID 19. Tested positive for COVID 19, currently in isolation under medical supervision. This is according to the Trinidad and Tobago government. Right? He began experiencing flu like symptoms on Monday evening, and he subsequently tested positive for COVID 19. So, we see what is happening. We see what is happening. Let us not blind our eyes to what is happening, and the fact that, there are more deadly strains being discovered, right? There are more deadly strains being discovered. So let us not play games with COVID 19, folks. Right? Folks, we are going to be getting to a number of other news. We're going to be talking about local government elections. We're going to be also touching on this strange and alarming trend of missing persons in Guyana. We got some sad news, but we're going to be talking about that later down in the show. We're going to also be talking about local government elections. As we saw, the Minister of Local Government and Regional Development, Mr. Damlal, the fraudulent minister, the tin pot dictator, coming out to say, a number of things that we're going to get into that of what he said. But local government elections are constitutionally due in 2021, in this year. So we are going to be paying keen attention to what is happening there with local government elections. As I said, we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking also about this alarming trend of missing persons and, letting persons know a few things that they need to do to ensure that they protect themselves and their loved ones. Right? We see a very alarming trend, but we're going to talk about that later down the show. Let us continue on the COVID 19, folks, because I want to share. People need to understand that there's a curfew in place. And it's our disobedience to this, our insistence that we are going to break this curfew, that has seen this alarming rise in COVID numbers, these bad numbers as we speak of. We cannot, folks, we cannot afford. And it says here that bars, restaurants, supermarkets are supposed to be closed at 9:30 p.m. 9:30. So that persons have an hour to get off the street so that they could be home before the 10:30 p.m. curfew. But let me talk a bit about this. I believe that this non-adherence to the curfew measures is a snake that came back to bite the PPP. If one can remember, there are so many instances where the fraudulent vice president sat and he said to the media, look, we are going to try soft enforcement. I want you to understand the about face that this fraudulent administration has taken on enforcing curfews, they would have criticized in their early few days in office, they would have criticized the APNU AFC for hard enforcement of curfew measures. Remember, the police had a bus, they were going around under the APNU, they were making the announcements, they were stopping these parties and all of these things. August 2nd came. This fraudulent administration was installed. And rather than continue that same blueprint that was there under the APNU AFC, they said, you know what, you can't lock people. These were the words of the fraudulent vice president. He said, how long can you lock people in the house? The country has to open up. That is what he said. And they are going to try soft enforcement. They are going to share out masks and they are going to educate persons. And they took the curfew and they pushed it all the way back to 10:30. It was hard enough to get people off the road at 8 or 9 o'clock. But to take the curfew and push it all the way back to 10:30 makes that the job of the police now harder. Now we see the army now. Remember, the PPP said that they are going to do soft enforcement. They're not going to arrest persons. They're not going to lock persons in their homes. So you see, because they slackened all of those things, persons took everything for granted. And now that we're seeing a rise in cases and in deaths due to COVID-19, they are now scrambling to try and get a hold of something that they allowed to go crazy. Make no bones about it. They help to perpetuate this attitude of nonchalance. They help to perpetuate the attitude of this don't care attitude among the people by saying to people, look, we can't lock up people in the house, soft enforcement, educate the people. Basically saying you got to take control of your own life. We ain't going to try no hard enforcement. This same government, this same fraudulent administration, the PPP, now is driving around with joint forces, the police and the GDF, picking people up, breaking up parties, arresting people. I am not against it. Don't get me wrong. I am not against the hard enforcement and what they're trying to do now. But this is the snake that they created with their lax and loose measures and their approach to COVID-19 regulation enforcement when they came in. They came in with this attitude that the country must be opened up. Business must happen. We can have X amount of persons in the bars now. All of these things can happen and we are going to open back the country. What has happened? They realized that that didn't work. So now they have resorted or reverted to the same measures that were in place on August 2nd when they took over. That is what we're saying, folks. They have decided that, you know what the APNU AFC was doing made sense. We have seen an unbelievable spike, an unbelievable increase due to those lax measures and the very relaxed way that the PPP approached enforcing COVID-19 regulations when they came in. So what do we have? We have them now scampering, running around with the bus every night. Nothing is wrong. I am not against enforcement. But if you were just a little bit politically mature and not decide that I'm going to throw out everything that the APNU AFC does when I come in, and I'm going to do things X way instead of analyzing what works. Obviously, the uh, the soft approach wasn't working or hasn't worked that they tried, the PP tried. No, so they reverted now to the hard enforcement of COVID-19 regulations. That was what the AP and UFC was doing, ensuring that people stayed safe by having these persons go wrong, break up these parties, and enforcing the curfew. And you had the curfew at the earlier time, mind you. But folks, this is what we see. They spoke about essential services. Apparently, the bars are essential services too. Let me say, let me say this. We as Guyanese have to protect ourselves. We have to protect ourselves. And as we are speaking about protecting ourselves, let me switch topics to quite an alarming and quite a concerning trend that we are seeing in our country. Recently, we saw the very sad news of this young man, Mr. Joel Skeet. We saw the missing posters about, and persons were doing their best trying to circulate it. And then we also saw yesterday that a decomposed body, which was found in the Demerara River, was positively identified as the missing Joel Skeet. Our thoughts and our prayers are with his family, his friends, and those persons who were close to him. Quite sad. Our condolences go out to his family and his friends. Right, the boy's father expressed, that the family is overwhelmed with grief. And reading this story, so many questions come to your head after you read a story like this. The mother said that she accompanied him to the barbershop. Sometimes you go to the barbershop and, you have to wait. So she left him there at the barbershop. He called her when he was finished at the barbershop. And he said, "Mom, I am coming home." Because of the time, she even suggested to him that he catch a taxi. Right? And, as a parent, that is something that really cuts you deep, because you're thinking, this could be anybody's child. Between the time he made that phone call and the end of the night, I could imagine the grief that mother, the worry that mother was going through. As he made the call, he says, "Mom, I'm coming home." He didn't disclose whether or not she agreed with him that he will take a taxi or he will walk or he'll catch a bus. But what she said is that, hours turned in, minutes turned into hours, hours into days. And the entire nation was cheering, asking persons if they can, if they saw this young man, the prime of his youth, a university student, to be discovered a few days later, dead. Is unbelievable grief and sadness for that family. It is such a sad thing to see young lives being snuffed out like this. And I say this, folks, realizing that there has been a quite an alarming trend of missing persons over the last 2 weeks or so. And we have to ask questions as to what is happening in our country. We have to ask questions as to what is happening in our country. We have seen an alarming rise in number of missing persons. Just yesterday, we saw this young lady from Linden. Thankfully, the young girl that we have on the screen, she was found. And these are just a few. I saw about three more circulating on Facebook, on social media, and on the news. These are just a few of them. But some serious questions need to be answered as to what is happening in our country. Right? Why are we seeing this rise in missing persons? You know, we have to ask these questions. We have to demand more of our security services. We have to demand, as Guyanese, we have to demand more of the Guyana police force. We've not only seen a rise in serious and violent crimes. You just need to scour social media. One murder after another chopping up, another robbery. You don't need to be a statistician to see the signs of increasing violence, increasing crime in our country. You don't need to be. It's right there in front of you. The signs are right there. And sadly, we saw the loss of this young man who mysteriously disappeared under mysterious circumstances. No one can say what happened to this young man between the time he called his mother and when he was discovered decomposing. It is quite a sad situation playing out in our country. And we are asking persons to ensure that you put your safety first. Right? As we said, the young lady, the young girl on this thing to the left of this picture, she was found alive. And there are a few more of these missing photos circulating. Folks, let us take care of our security. Let us take care of our safety. Right? Share with your friends and family these basic information. Right? Persons have started to circulate. They snap and send. Some simple things that you can do to ensure that you are safe when you're out in public. Right? And let your friends know where you are. Let your family know where you are. Take pictures of the vehicle that you're going into. These are measures that are just sensible in these times that we don't know what is happening. We don't know what is behind this apparent rise in missing persons in our country. We don't know. So we have to take precautions. We have to take precautions. You have to do the things you need to do to ensure that you are safe when you are out in public. As we are experiencing strange times in our country. There are so many unexplained things happening. And as I said, we have to demand more from our security sector. Our Minister of Home Affairs, or Public Security, whatever you want to call it, needs to be out there, out in front, letting the public know that people are safe and what measures they'll be putting in place to ensure that people are safe. What will you be doing as we see this continued rise in crime? As we see this continued escalation of serious crime, as we see this continued increase in missing persons, we need to hear from you. We need to hear from you. You are in charge of that sector. We need to hear from you. Right? You can't be quiet at this point in time. Over the last week and a half, we have seen so many persons go missing. This is not the time for you to be quiet. People turn up, it is such a sad situation. It's hard to talk about, but we have to say that these things can't just go by. They can't just go by. Like how we are making light of all of those persons who have died of COVID-19. 247. How can you make light of that? How can you not see that we need hard enforcement of the COVID-19 regulation? Just with these missing persons, we don't have 1 million people in this country. If 5, 6, 7 persons go missing in 2 weeks, then something is happening. Something is wrong. And we need to demand answers as Guyanese. We must. Folks, as we say, protect yourself. Let me share this one more time for persons out there. Protect yourself. Let your friends know where you are. Understand the things that you need to do when you're traveling alone. Because we do not know what is happening. And until we find out what is happening, you need to understand and take precautions. Because your safety is extremely important. Right? Your safety is extremely important. Folks, we are going to be moving on to, our in the news segment, and we're going to be talking about local government elections. On the other side of this quick 10-second break, 20-second break, we're going to be talking about local government elections. The Minister of Local Government said a few things that interesting, that we're going to unpack what he said, because it's going to be important as we move forward. We are beginning to see the signs of this PPP government pushing us back to a state of interim management committees and all of these things. But we see the first sign of it. But we are going to be talking about that. Let us just go for a quick break and we'll be back. Let's talk local government elections on the other side of this break. Welcome back, folks. Welcome back to our afternoon rush. We want to say thank you very much for those persons who would have joined us. As promised, we are going to be going on to local government elections. Folks, we have a minister of local government, fraudulent tin pot dictator Darmlal, who said recently that local government elections continue to hinge on the removal of certain key officials from the Guyana Elections Commission. According to the minister, the government is prepared and ready to have but they have absolutely no confidence in GCOM. Folks, this is just the beginning. Let me just outline and unpack the PBP's plan here for you. For those persons who might not be up on what their modus operandi is, right? They want to dismantle the Guyana Elections Commission so that they can, as the people say, do what they want, so they can do what they want. The Guyana Elections Commission, as it is currently constituted, doesn't work for them. The PPP, of course, wants to have their people in place. I said that the local government elections are constitutionally due in 2021. We understand this. The PPP, their style of governance, democracy or local democracy, or the people in the local organs having power and able and the ability to govern themselves, does not work well for the PPP style of control. Do you think that the PPP in their 23 years couldn't have held local government elections? They could have. Why is it between 2015 and 2020, the APNU AFC held two local government elections? Why? It wasn't rocket science. The systems were set up long before. All you needed to do was put some money in GCOM and let them run the process. And what happened after those two local government elections? What happened? We saw NDCs being empowered. We saw all of these local bodies moving forward with improving their communities and their neighborhoods. That is what we saw. You are telling me that for over 20 years, the PPP couldn't hold local government elections? Nothing was stopping them. Nothing was stopping them. They could have held it. But as I said, it does not suit their style of governance. And because it doesn't suit their style of governance, you will see every attempt to undermine local democracy and democracy in general. We would have highlighted before that Damlal seems to be, he has been given a mandate to ensure that central government, through the ministry, it would appear so, through the Ministry of Local Government, controls all of those little organs around the country. You cannot have control of those little organs and the money is going to these regions so that you can ensure that it goes to your friends and cronies in those regions and in these little NDCs. You can't control them and do that when local democracy is running properly. Because many of these NDCs will not be controlled by your party hacks. So what do? You put pressure on the overseers, you put pressure on the regional democratic council to interfere in these elections, to ensure that these NDCs are controlled by your people. That is what you do. And that is what the PPP has been doing. And this is why we have highlighted Damlal's role in this. This tin pot dictator mentality, as he has to control everything. That idea will be scaled up as we approach the next regional and general elections also. Mark my word, this is the beginning of what the PPP will try to do with both the local government elections and the regional and general elections. If they do not get their way with dismantling and reconstructing GCOM as they see fit, they are willing to blow up the entire system, the PPP. They are willing to blow up the entire system. We will not have local government election if X is not done how I want it done, and X person is not a GCOM, and Lowenfield don't move, and Myers don't move, and X person don't move. We'll just blow up the entire system because we're in power. We're in power, so whether, and we were in power 20 years without doing local government, and we think we did a good job. That's what they're saying. So why worry about local government elections? So what you're seeing happening here, and this is me unpacking their first move. You know, it's a chessboard. Their first move is to discredit GCOM so they can dismantle it. Right? Secondly, is to say, well, GCOM is ready, GCOM is constituted properly, and this isn't happening, that happening, so we can't have local government elections. They know fully well that we can't head into another elections without cleansing that voters list. But I bet you bottom dollar today that when the topic of the voters list comes up, even though they're saying yes, there's money there for voter registration and all these things, you're going to see that they are going to try and tell the Guyanese people that, look, we can't do anything with the voters list, and try and kick this can down the road as long as possible. Right? But let us consider what, and as I look at some of these measures, let me just share this with you. There are some things that the PPP are calling for in terms of GCOM. Some of which are not bad. Let me say that. Some of it, not necessarily bad. But let's go through this list of things. Right? This is part of the list. We're going to scroll down just now. The PPP are calling for the following reforms of GCOM. They want enhanced biometrics. That is not bad. That is good. We can do with that, so that we can stop the fraud that took place on March 2nd. Right? They want to move to electronic voting. Again, this is not necessarily a bad idea as long as it is done properly and it is properly financed, so we have proper systems. That's really not bad. Right? This is the one for me that is kind of strange. They said to bring GCOM Secretariat under the purview of the Commission to enable the Commission to give Secretariat general orders and directions. This is the one that is going to start to get into that area of control that they want. They want to bring GCOM Secretariat under the purview of the Commission. This may be a hard sell, knowing how controversial the selection of a GCOM chair is. And you know, when we talk about the role of GCOM chair, you have to understand, because of how GCOM is constituted, the chair has a lot of power. If you have 3 on one side, 3 on the other side, then the ultimate power is with the chair. So I don't see how this one is going to sell. Number 3. It's going to be very difficult, right? They want recruitment of GCOM key elections officials such as returning officers and presiding officers, poll clerks, through an improved and transparent and impartial process. This too I don't have a problem with, because these are the key people who cause the skullduggery. These are the people who were supposed to ensure that those documents were in those 47 boxes from the East Coast. Right? Those presiding officers who decided that they will do whatever they want with those documents and only ballots will end up in the box. So I don't have a problem with this. But I'm going to tell you what I think at the end of this list. I don't necessarily have a problem with them wanting proper recruitment, transparent recruitment, so we have professional people executing the job on election day. That is fine. Let's go down in this list a little. I think I'm moving too far. Right. What? Let's go to number 5. A new voters list to be compiled on the basis of fresh house-to-house enumeration. This has to be the height of irony and hypocrisy. And I say this because many will recall that the APNU AFC would have been calling for this. They would have been calling for this many, many years ago. Right? Folks, I'm following your comments. I know persons have issues with electronic voting. And we will have that conversation another day with an elections official as to how electronic voting would work in Guyana. We had electronic voting, or they had electronic voting in the United States of America for quite a while now, and they would have gotten to a point where they have perfected that side of it. Many persons believe that electronic voting is an issue or it may be manipulated. The problem with that is that there's no proof of that. When you vote electronically, a receipt is printed out. You have part of it, the elections officials have another part of it. So there's a paper trail to electronic voting. There's no electronic system that doesn't have a paper trail. People realize the genius persons who are designing these systems understand that a paper trail is extremely important. This is how you do recounts. For all of those places that had to recount during the last US elections and they had electronic balloting, electronic voting, they had to use that paper trail. It's a paper recount. Because when you vote, you're given a receipt. So there's a paper trail. So if you go back and you try and trouble the numbers in the computer, somebody decide to hack something and it doesn't match a paper trail, and you know something is wrong. So I don't necessarily have a problem with electronic voting. I think that electronic voting is moving the right direction for our country as we develop. We need to get away from all paper and make it as easy as possible for voters to execute and cast their ballots. Right? There's no holding up a piece of paper, and if they exit over the line, you're determining what was the intent of the voter. All of these things are just, archaic. And we need to move forward and use the technology available. That is my contention. With electronic vote, there is no pencil to write there, and you write the wrong thing. So I think we ought to move forward. Right? Folks, we will have our differences opinion in terms of electronic voting. But let's continue on this list of things being suggested by the PPP. And let's talk about this idea of new lists. Again, this is another good thing on the list. But if elections are due this year, we need to see movement. We need to see action. Because all of these things are all fine and good to put on a list. But when are you going to do them? You're going to say to us all these things that have to be done, so we got to push back local government elections? Is that what you're going to see? What else do they wish to see happen before we have elections? The review of the process that allows for voting by the discipline services. How? This is very vague to me. How and why is the question that I need to ask. The review of the process that allows for voting by the discipline services. Why are you reviewing that? Aren't the discipline services voting something that we've done all the time, and we've set aside days for them? Why are we reviewing it, and what do we want to change it to? Those are questions that need to be asked. They want to amend the relevant sections of the Representation of the People's Act to allow to allow the enactment of the appropriate legislation to facilitate implementation of agreed reform. Now, this to me is, what should I say? We're going to hear these arguments come out in the petitions in the court about the Representation of the People Act and what it can allow for. And this is why we had all the tango happening, the dance happening after elections, and all these injunctions and this, and how we should resolve these matters. So I'm going to leave the discussion on this for the lawyers, whether or not the Representation of the People's Act allows for enough wiggle room for GCOM to fix what they need to fix if problems come up. Right? This last one is very interesting for me. Right? Selection of a new chair of GCOM. Oh boy. Oh boy. Folks, it doesn't get any funnier than this country we call Guyana. Doesn't get any funnier than this. These 8 measures proposed by the PPP are to be their demands, so to speak, before elections are held. They want all of these reform and these things to happen. Many of which I don't have a problem with. Personally, Randolph Pritchard, I'm not speaking on behalf of anybody here. I'm not speaking on behalf of the APNU or I don't have a problem with a number of these reforms. My bigger problem that I have is that these may be used as encumbrances. They may be used as speed bumps. They may be used as slowing mechanisms to drag out the elections, so that the tin pot dictator that is Damlal can have his claws more entrenched in those NDCs. But I have been saying from the beginning that is going to be a very tough fight. I don't believe that this is a fight that Mr. Damlal wants. And I say this because the APNU AFC would have given Guyanese a taste of local democracy, and the people like it. They love the taste of it. They love the feeling of controlling their own destiny in their neighborhood. They love the feeling of being able to go around their community, identify problems, and use the little monies that coming from the RDCs and central government to fix it. They like controlling their own resources. Anybody would love that. And I'm not saying that the local government system as it was under the APNU AFC was perfect. There are a lot of administrative things that need strengthening in the local government system. There are a lot of places in the local government system that need strengthening, capacity building, training of these persons who are on these councils, these NDCs, those office bearers, to understand how to organize and manage resources and funds. Administration is a big issue at the NDC level. But the first step was taken by the APNUAFC, that you need to give the people the power and then work with them to ensure that they can handle that power. Give them their resources, then train them. Whether you train them before or after, but training is important on how to administer and to be good administrators of their resources. That is what was done by the APNU AFC. And I say this knowing fully well that persons are not going to allow this PPP administration to come and take that from them. They are not going to allow them to come and take it from them. So all of the shenanigans that you will see playing out between now and when local government elections is supposed to be held will be for one reason alone, that they need to control everything in those regions. Because nothing is more important to this fraudulent PPP government than having control of those resources so they can channel them to their people. Make no mistake about it. Control the resources in every little small section of Guyana so you can channel it to your friends and cronies. That is what they are about. Make no mistake about it. And I'm very, very certain that Guyana is not going to allow that to happen. So let us keep our eyes on that, folks. Let us keep our eyes on local government elections. We're always encouraging the young people to come out and be a part of your local government system. Be a representative. Be a part of the change that you want. You go out there and be a part of that change. Right? You go out there and be part of that change. Folks, as we wrap up, before we go, we want to remind persons that, you have to be careful. You have to be careful. You have to be careful where you go. You have to be careful what you do. And be very, very, very focused on ensuring that you're safe. We are going to be having, as we wind the program down, we remind you that we're going to be having a very in-depth and interesting program tonight, as the Ministry of Education has reversed and decided that they are not going to be opening schools after the Easter holiday. They're not going to be opening schools after the Easter holiday. That is an interesting position, that school is going to continue as it was in terms of the amount of persons coming. Of course, you only have 5th and sixth graders, and of course 10 and 11 grade in secondary school going to school right now. So there's a lot of space in the school. Uh, but when school does reopen, it will, if they are going to try and push it till September, it is going to, of course, be dependent on a number of things: where we are with vaccination, um, the continued spread of the COVID-19 virus, and whether or not there is a viable, sensible plan of reopening, whether it be shift system, whether it be, a blended approach where you do some online, some in face. You give options to persons who cannot afford the internet to come in and have their face-to-face session, of course, given the right regulations. So it is an interesting discussion, and we invite you tonight at 8 p.m. to tune in. We're going to have Dr. Nicolette Henry, former Minister of Education, and we're going to have also MP Coretta MacDonald, who is a part of the Teachers Union, and they are going to be discussing with Chair Duncan now schooling in this pandemic and how do we approach such a thing. So that's going to be on at 8 tonight. Let us continue to keep our friends and family safe. Remember, folks, we have to be vigilant. We have to be vigilant. So on behalf of my technical team, I want to remind you, let's continue to work for national development. Let's continue to look out for our neighbors. And remember, folks, take heed. Take heed as we move about and we do the things that we need to do. Take heed. Remember to protect yourself. Snap and send. This is a new trend. Snap and send. Snap a photo of the vehicle license plate. Send it to any of your close friends or relatives. Call a relative or friend, or you can call a relative or friend in the presence of the driver. Give them, right, the license plate number. You need to protect yourself. You need to protect yourself because we do not know what is happening. And, this is not to alarm anyone. It's not to alarm anyone, but this is for you to do this smart and sensible thing and protect yourselves. Right. So, with that said, I want to say thank you again on behalf of myself and the technical team. We want to thank you very much for being a part of this program this afternoon. Do enjoy the rest of your evening. Again, like I always say, let's continue to work for national development. My name is Randolph Critchlow. Do enjoy the rest of your evening.